G'day grade 12s, and we're back again, and we're going to continue with our English paper. We're going to master this paper at the end of the year. You're going to see things is just going to go so much better. The only thing you have to do is you just need to do your part. I'm here just to guide you through, to give you some tips, to make it a little bit easier. And don't forget our motto for this paper: getting to know your paper, getting to understand your paper, and then finally getting to master that paper at the end of the day. Okay, so yes, we've done 3 parts already. We've done 3 questions already. We've organized, we've looked at it, we've mastered it, I would think, by now. We would understand it by now. We know what it's going to look like at the end of the year. So now we're moving on to question number 4. We're still in section C, remember? Section C, which is the language section. Now we're just moving to question 4. So the last lesson that we did before this one was question 3, which was analyzing an adverb. Now we're moving and we are analyzing a cartoon. Those humorous things. You're supposed to laugh at the cartoon, and I hope that when you do get your cartoon that you actually see the humor, and hopefully when you see the humor it will make you relax a little bit at the end of the year when you do that. Right, so we're going to start immediately and we're going to look at the different terminology of a cartoon. So there we have, so you have your cartoon. You need to make sure that you know exactly what it is that you're looking for. And I'm going to repeat what I said in the last lesson. I'm going to repeat what I said when we did advertising. When you see your advert, I said you look at everything. Take note of everything in your advert. Likewise in the cartoon. Take note of everything. What is there? What is being said? What is written? What do they look like? What do the characters look like? Remember, a cartoon is there for humor. So make sure that you see the humor in the cartoon. Okay? Look at each frame, for instance. What is happening in each frame? Okay? Be aware. Focus on what is there. Okay, so our first thing that I want to show you is, obviously everybody knows that that is a frame. Okay, sometimes a cartoon has only 1 frame, sometimes it has 15 frames, 12 frames, 10 frames, 2 frames, it can be anything, okay, but each frame, each cartoon will have frames, okay. Sometimes it has 3 frames, but then the middle frame, there's maybe not even a frame, it's maybe just empty, and we'll talk about that later, why that is like that, okay. Then the next thing we look at is the speech bubble. And where's the speech bubble? There's a difference between the speech bubble and there's a difference between the thought bubble, okay. And the reason for that obviously is because the speech bubble is exactly that. Speech bubble are the character's actual words that the character is speaking. When you look at the thought bubble, nobody's speaking, but they are thinking. And in this case, you can see what is it that they're thinking? They are all question marks. So obviously, these pupils in the class, they don't know what is going on. They have no idea. They have questions in their minds on what it is that the teacher is talking about. Okay, what is it that she has written? Okay, so make sure that you know the difference between the speech bubbles and the thought bubbles. Then our next terminology we're looking at are the movement lines. Okay, here the movement lines, because remember, you cannot see what the cartoonist saw when he drew this cartoon. So here the cartoonist wants to show us that the teacher was writing vigorously and her hand was moving. So that is why we have the motion lines, okay? And the motion lines is usually indicated with 2 little strokes on each side of whichever part of the body is moving, whether it is the head shaking, whether it's a hand shaking, okay? That is the idea of the curved lines next to whichever part they identifying is moving. Then our next 2 things that we want to focus on would be the words, okay, the bold words or the bold lettering, Okay, so sometimes when people want to exclaim something, when they want to really emphasize something, it is written in bold words. Okay, sometimes the whole cartoon is written in capital letters, for instance. That doesn't necessarily mean that they are shouting, that they are screaming, but the bold words will then make that difference. The bold words will give you the idea that that is being said stronger or harder than the rest of the whatever is in the frame. Then we also talk about verbal clues. Now, verbal clues and visual clues. Your verbal clues is going to be what it is that you read. Okay, so in your verbal clue, for instance, you will be able to see what it is that the person said and how the person said it. That's a verbal clue. So an exclamation is a verbal clue. This also becomes a verbal clue. Okay, then also the visual clues would obviously be a picture or an image that shows something. So on the faces, okay, on the faces we can see these are visual clues. So when they talk about visual clues and verbal clues, you must be able to make that difference. And in some instances, the question will be more direct. They will talk about, for instance, facial expression, okay, or body language, or then they will compare the facial expression with a verbal technique. So facial expression will then be almost the same as the visual clue. Okay, so you take note of all of those things. So these are just some of the terminology that you need to acquaint yourself with, and that you must make sure that you know exactly what it is all about. Then we're moving on to the next part. We see when we look at cartoons, you must be able to look at, analyze, and know and understand what it means, okay? What is a facial expression? What is body language? What are sound effects? What do they talk about when they talk about a setting? What do they talk about when they talk about a tone? What is a tone? Okay, how do I understand a tone? How do I determine a tone, for instance? So let's go through them step by step, okay? Facial expression is exactly what it is, okay? It's the way you pull your face when you are talking to someone. Sometimes people show no expression on their face and they can just talk and they just have a one straight face and they look the same. Whether they are surprised or whether they are sad or whether they're happy, their face just looks the same, okay? So there's nothing that can be read. Other people, some people can talk with their face. So the expression will show exactly that they are happy, they are sad, they are angry, you know. So, and you must be able to describe that. So when the question in the exam talks about facial expression, it is just this part. It is not, nothing from your neck down is not facial expression. Your face is facial expression. What is seen here? What do you see here? What do you see doing? Okay? Don't, in the exam, fall in the trap of when they ask you a question. How do you know that the man in frame 3 is sad? Please don't ever say, I can see it in his facial expression. I'm sure you can. But what is it that you see? We know it's in the facial expression. Explain what you see in the facial expression. Okay? Be specific. What do you see? Is his mouth wide open? Is his eyes wide open? Is his eyes shut firmly? Is there a frown on his forehead? Is his mouth turned down? Does he have a wrinkly mouth? Is he pulling his pout? Is he pursing his mouth, for instance? Okay, so you describe what it is that you say. So how do we know that he is scared? How are you going to describe the facial expression of being scared? For instance, on this slide here, you're going to say his eyes are wide open, his eyebrows are raised, his mouth is closed, or you can even say that his mouth, there's a straight line, okay, you can't see any teeth. Okay, so you must describe. It's important that facial expressions must be described. Don't ever have an answer to say it's in his facial expression. The minute you see that you've written that, you scratch it out and you describe your facial expression. Nobody wants to know that it's a towel tell me what is the facial expression. Okay, then likewise, body language, okay? Some people talk in their body, with their bodies. Sometimes you talk to your friend and then your friend will move around, or they would stand with their hands on their hips, which means they are getting irritated, or they are bored, okay? And sometimes people don't read body language, and sometimes it's important to read body language. You can easily see when somebody is bored, when somebody is not really interested in what it is that you are saying, when somebody is not in the mood to do anything, so they'll just sit. Just think of how many times you sit in class and you listen to your teacher and you don't really like what she's saying. Just look around in the class and see if you can see what their body language looks like, okay? And that is how you talk. That is when you have a non-verbal communication, okay? So your body language is the non-verbal communication that your body shows how you feel or what it is that you're experiencing, okay? And a lot can be read in a body language. If you look at these pictures here, if you look, each one has a different body language. This one's hands is in his pockets, his hands is in his pockets, his thumbs are only in his pockets. So get that idea of, you know, being cool. Here, I can handle this. This is fine. This one is, this is, you know, we can do this. It's okay. This one, when your hands are on your hips, you can also refer to it as your arms being akimbo, which means it's on your hips, which means you're either upset or you are agitated. It can also show frustration, okay? Yeah, this could be also a little bit maybe relaxed or trying to focus, trying to make sure that you understand what is going on, okay? And then if you look at these ones at the bottom, here you can already see his eyes also, his facial expression and his body language is showing so much, okay? So again, like with the facial expression, so make sure that, and in many instances, the questions are usually formulated around facial and body. So make sure that when your questions asks for facial expression and for body language, make sure that you focus on each one, okay? Describe that facial expression like I've just explained now before this, and describe the body language again, like we just said previously. When they ask you, how do you know that the man is not really interested in what the other person is saying? You do not say, I see it in the body language. Yes, I also see it in the body language, but what do you see in the body language? Explain to me, what is it that you are seeing in the body language, okay? Are you seeing someone whose hands are in his pockets? His fingers pointing at someone? His hands are on the hips, like I just said, akimbo, but you don't have to use the word akimbo. You can say hands are on the hips, or you can use akimbo, or arms is in the air because of frustration. Hands are relaxed on the knees when they sit, hands in front of the mouth, face close to the other character's face. Those are all part of body language because you're leaning forward. Are you just slouching? Are you standing up straight? Are you looking up? Because obviously when you stand up straight, you look very confident. Okay? So those are the things that you need to describe. Never, ever write as an answer body language. I can see it in the body language. We can all see it in the body language, okay? But we need to know, what do you see in the body language? Describe that body language, okay? Then we're looking at sound effects, and all of you obviously know that cartoons love sound effects to give you that idea of what happened. Slam, boom, wow, kapow. Okay, that is the way, that it would be the sound that is heard when something is done. And this is also known as onomatopoeia. Okay, it's a sound device which we also use in poetry in your paper 2. And this sound device is usually not part of a speech, okay? It is usually outside of a speech bubble, outside of a thought bubble. Sometimes it's the only thing that's in the frame, so which makes it totally distant from what is being said or what is being done in the cartoon. So make sure that you can actually identify that and know exactly what is happening. Okay. Then also we look at setting, and setting is obviously where and when the scene takes place. Okay, so you need to look, and that is why I say when you do cartoons, when you do adverts, you look at every single thing. You look at everything, okay? So you take note of where they are sitting because they're going to ask you a question maybe on setting. It will also maybe, that is also maybe part of the humor. So you take note of what it is, where it is. Here you are in a hospital. We know that because we have a wheelchair. We have a lady in a white coat. Another one that is on a stretcher, okay? So we know exactly where. This could be a restaurant or it can be a kitchen, okay? You will then say why it is a kitchen. You would say why you feel it is a restaurant, okay? So you must take note of that and you describe it. Say, if they say, what is this? Describe the setting, then you first say where it is. They are sitting in a restaurant, and then you're going to say why it is that you feel it is a restaurant, okay? Then our next thing that we need to understand in a cartoon is tone, because clearly there's a difference in the way you say things, okay? Because your tone is how you say things, how you project it, and obviously then how the next person says something. So you understand how something is being said when it comes to tone. Okay, and that automatically, when you understand how it's being said, it automatically gives you the attitude of that particular character towards something or someone. Okay, and this can usually be picked up in the words that the person is saying. Because remember, to understand tone, you try and imagine the person saying it, the person standing in front of you and the person saying it. So there's a difference if I, for instance, say, come here please. I have a different tone as when I say, come here please. Okay, there's a difference in it, and that is exactly what we mean with that. So these are the different types of tone. Do they have an admiring tone when people say, oh, wow, that is beautiful. I've never seen something like that. They're admiring it, okay? They're praising it. Angry tone, which is just what I expressed to you now, a hopeful tone, a joyful tone, anxious, bitter, sarcastic. Everybody knows sarcastic because most of the answers that we get, it's a sarcastic tone. And sad and happy is also very well-known tones, but let's try and move away from those kind of tones. Let's try and look at other words, using other words to describe your tone. And I would want you, as an exercise also for yourself, also just to help yourself, look at these words and look if you can understand, look at the meaning of the words, and then maybe next time, instead of using happy, sad, sarcastic, see if you can use some of these other words, okay? That also shows tone and just makes it a little bit interesting, okay? He has a bossy tone, he has a nostalgic tone when he thinks back on the things that has happened and the way things were, how easy it was, nostalgic, okay? So look through these, find your dictionary or Google the meaning of it, and you have another word to use when it comes to tone, for instance. Okay, so these 5 things, if I can just go back, okay, make sure that you can identify that. Make sure that you can answer questions on it. Make sure that you will be able to know how to answer it. What is it that they want? Look at the things that they want you to look at. If we can go back to our previous one that we had in the beginning, look at the facial expression. The facial expression here, and you look at what it is that was said. She says, oh, sorry kids, I forgot. And yeah, she wrote on the board, which is correct grammar, okay? And then she says, they've been away for so long, they don't understand these words because they've been on holiday for so long. So now she writes it in their language, and immediately they are happy, okay? So there's the humor also. Look at their faces because they don't understand correct English, but they understand this English, which is not grammatically correct. Okay, so again here also, understand the setting. Look at the setting. Look at the facial expressions. Look at the body language. Look at the body language of this one. Look at the facial expression of that one. Because remember, what your questions can also ask you, they can also ask you, how does the facial expression change from this, from frame 1 to frame 2, okay? And you must be able to answer that. So let's go through it and let's quickly look at a question. Let's quickly practice a question, and then I would want you to do one afterwards again. So we're going to look at, this is my cartoon, and remember this cartoon has 3 frames. I look at everything in my frame. I look at where do you think this is. So this is supposed to be a hedge, and here we have Blondie. Her name is Blondie, and this is her friend. Here's a lawnmower, and in frame 3, this is the husband laying on a hammock, and you can see his mouth is wide open, and there's a big bold Z, okay, and that is coming from this open mouth, okay. And if you read through it, you must be so you first read it before you even look at the question. Read through it and make sure you find the humor. Once you find the humor, then you know you're good to go, okay. You understand it, okay. And if you don't find the humor, it's also okay. I'm sure you will at least get the answer. Let's go to the questions quickly. Just quickly look at the questions. I've also given you the answers quickly because I just want to show you how to answer these kind of questions, okay? And because that is basically what it's all about. Some of these things looks easy, but it is all about how you answer. Because remember, the person who's marking your work doesn't really know you. They don't understand where you're coming from or how you get to your answer, okay? Not that that becomes an issue, but it just makes it, your teacher knows you, for instance. Your teacher knows what you mean when you say something like that. The person that's marking your work is not going to think like that. So you're going to make sure that you're going to give as much detail and make sure that you show the person who's marking your work that you understand what you are reading. Okay, so let's look at the question there quickly. It says, where does the conversation between Blondie and a neighbor take place? So here we're talking about setting, okay? Where is it? They are in the garden. They are outside, they are talking outside along the fence, okay? So that gives us setting. There's a fence between the 2 houses because she's obviously standing on her side and Blondie standing on her side, okay? So that is the setting question. Then it says, state one visual clue which has made the neighbor conclude that there is a problem with the lawnmower. How do we know from what we see, what has made it possible for the neighbor that to say that there is a problem? Because she says, what's the problem, Blondie? Out of gasoline? What visual clue is there? So what can we see? So we can see that Blondie is standing and she's staring at the lawnmower, okay? She's staring at the lawnmower, she's leaning forward with her hands on her hips. It's like she's standing, she's like, oh, what is happening here now? So that is obviously what the neighbor picked up on, okay? So that is the visual clue that you get. We're not even looking at what it is that she has said. We're looking at what is it that we can see, okay? Then state 2 meanings of the starter that Blondie is referring to. Remember, we are all still in frame 1. Okay, so this indicates, so the fact that it's 4.1.1 and we now at 4.1.3 means that these 3 questions refer to frame 1. Okay, be very careful that you always focus, that you know which frame they are referring to. It's very important. So we're still in frame 1. So now she says, no, I think the problem is with the starter. So now what they're asking is, what do you think would be the 2 reasons? What do you think would be the 2 meanings of the starter? And it could mean, obviously, it could refer to the starter, which is where you start the lawnmower. She could also refer to the starter being a husband, who's the person who has actually started mowing the lawn and then clearly has stopped. Okay. Then we look at the next one. It says complete the following tag questions, and that is a language question. And I know that they do ask language questions also. Our next lesson, we will focus on language, okay? But also you need to understand also some of the language questions and obviously answer the language. So here's a tag question. Remember your tag questions. The lawnmower is broken, isn't it? Okay, or you can write it out. You can write the contraction out in full. Is it not? With a question mark at the end, don't forget. Okay, and then they want to know, where is the husband sleeping? They say in frame 3. So you're looking in frame 3. Okay, you're not looking at any of the other frames, only in frame 3. In frame 3, Dagwood, who is the name of the husband, is sleeping is he sleeping in a bed? Is he sleeping on a swing? Is he in a hammock? Or is he in a cot? Wow, this is called a hammock. It's not a swing, okay? It's a hammock. Okay, then we look at number 4. Identify the clues, visual or here they're not asking you a visual or a verbal clue. Here they're basically just asking you, identify the clues. What are the clues? Okay, identify the clues which indicate that Dagoed is fast asleep. How do we know? There's lots of visual clues. So we can say his mouth is wide open. Okay, he's snoring because there is a big Z, which is an indication of sleeping. Okay, his hand is laying limply on the side, which obviously means he doesn't even know, he's unconscious, if I can say so, because he's sleeping. Okay, those are all visual clues. This is also a visual clue. It's obviously no verbal clues because nobody's talking because he is fast asleep. Okay, so make sure that you can focus on that. Then let's look at what 4.5 is. Blondie's calm tone and appropriate reaction to what is happening in frame 3. She says, is it broken? And Blondie says, no, it just got distracted. We know that Blondie is not angry. We know that she's not shouting. How do we know that? Because there's no exclamation marks. There's no bold letters. So she's not shouting. She's calm. Okay, she's very calm. And that is how we can know she's got a calm tone when she says it. Had there been exclamation marks, had there been bold letters, then we would have known that she was shouting and she's angry. But she's not. And that is why the question says, is Blondie's calm tone an appropriate reaction to what is happening here in frame 3? Discuss your opinion. And this is your opinion again. You can say, yes, it's appropriate because she understands that her husband is maybe tired, he has been up all night maybe, or he had already covered a whole space of the lawn, so he's just taking a break. Or you can say, no, Dagoed shirks his duty, he just left it like that to mow the lawn, and she should have been more angry at him because that was his duty, and now he just lays there. He hasn't even maybe completed one square of his lawn and he's already sleeping. Okay, your opinion, just to make sure that you justify. It is never just yes or no, just never just that, always a justification. Okay, so once you've understand and once you've worked through this, I would then want you to practice and test yourself with this one. Okay, look at the frames. Okay, make sure that you understand and you look at when it says refer to frame 1, you refer only to these frames and you complete the questions for me. Okay, once again, that is also another 10 marks, and I'm sure working through this through the cartoon like we've just done, I'm sure you'll be able to get this in no time. So the next time when we see each other again, then we'll go through the answers to this. So good luck, and I will definitely see you next time. Thank you.